How do you define climate anxiety?
The understanding that things are changing really rapidly around me right now, and I don't necessarily have full control over what happens to me or what my future looks like.
Growing up in suburban Northern Virginia, 17-year-old high school student Layla always loved the outdoors. She calls it her happy place.
This place, for me personally, that's unchangeable and also happens to be in nature, where I feel like I have control over my environment.
But after facing record temperatures, drastic flooding, and power outages, Layla realized she was living with the fear of environmental doom. And the COVID pandemic didn't help.
I felt like I was just being sequestered to my room, and my anxiety and my mental health issues just kind of doubled and tripled upon themselves.
Still, a few minutes of fresh air would help her get through the school day. Then, in June of 2021, Layla suffered from a severe heat rash.
I went outside for a 5-minute break in between, and I started experiencing extreme pinpricks of pain across my chest. I started feeling really exhausted. I was on the verge of a panic attack because I'd never experienced anything like that before.
Today, Layla is one of thousands of young people around the country taking on climate change and fighting back against the adults in power, who they say knowingly polluted the earth.
21 young people ages 11 to 22 are suing the federal government over
policies they say are destroying their world.
Lawsuits have been filed around the world from plaintiffs as young as 8 years old. And while many of them get tossed, for the first time in history, a youth-led climate change lawsuit is going to trial.
It's an immense relief. I'm wary of looking at this as a turning point, but I think this time it's different.
Dr. Lisa Van Susteren, a forensic psychiatrist, conducts evaluations in order to testify that the kids have been harmed by climate change as a result of the government's actions.
What we are doing to children is beyond the imagination, I think, of most people. And I probably would not know myself, except that I have sat in a room and I have listened to them. The kids need to see that people in power, particularly people in government, are taking their role to protect them seriously.
24/7 access to social media, connecting these kids in a common cause, but upping the pressure, too.
It can be such a positive space. It can be a space to amplify your voice and to get your message across to other people, but it can also be a space where an echo chamber is almost formed, where just negative messages and terrifying realities are just kind of bounced along from person to person.
Amid a worsening mental health crisis among young people, the Surgeon General released a comprehensive report detailing some of those struggles and what those in charge plan to do about it.
I was wondering if climate anxiety was at all part of your findings. Would this be addressed in the bipartisan legislation that you're currently working on? Because it's obviously a pertinent issue among young people.
There are many factors that drive and impact an individual's mental health. We hear this time and time again in the roundtables that I do with young people around the country. So yes, we have to address those deeper underlying factors, but we also have to move in parallel to provide greater access to care.
In the 53-page report, just 3 mentions of climate change. The Biden administration vowed to tackle global warming, but so far hasn't made much progress, according to advocates. The lack of action leaving these kids wondering, what will it take?
There is a common denominator in what we're discussing here, and it's children. Honestly, if you're really doubting that climate change is a massive factor in the future of your children, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's undeniable at this point.
And Julie joins me live now from Capitol Hill. So, Julie, let's talk more about this. Why is this generation especially vulnerable to the consequences of climate change?
Allison, the answer to that is twofold. In my conversations with these young adults, they told me that, first of all, the effects of climate change, natural disasters, excessive heat, wildfires, they're just extremely prevalent in these young kids' lives, no matter where they live in this country or around the world. And second of all, they really feel like those adults in charge have largely abandoned them because they say they abandoned this issue. The lawsuits that I was talking about in the piece, the lawsuits that were filed by kids as young as 8. They really think, and they say, that the governments, the state governments, the United States, violated their constitutional rights of liberty and security by knowingly polluting what they say is their backyard. And so I spoke to one woman, Valhali. She's a 19-year-old in Florida. She said that her whole life, her parents were putting pressure on her, telling her that her generation is responsible to solve this problem. And there's a real problem now with mental health and climate anxiety, as you heard from the doctor that I spoke to in the piece.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.